Myth number 2, COVID-19 vaccines change our DNA. I wonder where this got started. Could it be that just because we're talking so much more about DNA and RNA and mRNA that maybe people were concerned that that could affect our own DNA? Well, for that you need to understand the cell. Now, I have this cell here, but you need to know that in reality, our cell is far more beautiful and far more complex than anything I can do, okay? But, bear with me. Just imagine this is your cell, okay? Inside the cell is what's known as the nucleus. Now, this nucleus is surrounded by cytoplasm. Inside the nucleus is our chromosomal DNA. Let's do that. Right? So if you look here, our chromosomal DNA is inside the nucleus. When people get an mRNA vaccine, that mRNA stays outside the nucleus. It stays outside, it helps to produce that protein, it does its job, it breaks down, that's the end of it. Doesn't interfere, doesn't affect the DNA that's inside the cell, the chromosomal DNA. In the case of DNA vaccines, there is no evidence to indicate that DNA actually integrates or affects our DNA. So really, there's no scientific evidence that we have to show or to prove that the DNA in the vaccine is in any way going to affect our cellular DNA. So this, my friend, is a myth. Yeah. Myth number 3. The COVID-19 vaccines contain a chip. Now, how do I prove that this is a myth to you scientifically? Well, I could say 3 things about the subject. I know that there was a video that was doing the rounds on social media which seemed to suggest that this was a fact. Well, I can point to the fact that there were several outlets and several publications that published good articles to show how those videos were really a bunch of a whole other videos taken out of context. So there's no need to believe that the vaccines contain a chip that's tracking you or taking your data or anything like that. Point number 2. I know that video did contain some information on an RFID and tracking the vaccine, but that was to track the vaccine, not the contents inside the vaccine. So there's no talk about actually tracking you or putting some sort of chip in you. And 3, there was a study maybe about 2 or 3 years ago that discussed a technology that would use a quantum dye or a quantum dye dot that could be mixed with a vaccine to record data. Now, that technology, from what I understand, does exist, but it's a far cry and it's very, very different from what we are talking about here, which is vaccines in the context of COVID-19. So honestly, there is no rational reason to believe that any of the COVID-19 vaccines, the ones that are approved and the ones that everyone is talking about, have a chip or that you could be in trouble with being tracked. So, my friends, this is a myth. I'm Cheryl Travasa and thank you so much for joining me.